Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Deb and this is DB Design and Sewing Australia. Today I'm going to be doing part 3 of the Ginger Jeans sew along. And this sew along came about from the challenge that's being held by the Sewists of Oz, and that's myself, Katrina from Create Something Pretty, Deb from Sewing Seams with Deb, and Hayley from the Hay Meadow. I will put things up on the screen and it will also be in the description how to enter. We have 2 fabulous prizes donated by the Daily Society. One of those prizes is a June bespoke box and the other prize is a $50 voucher to the Daily Society. They're fabulous prizes. Thank you very much, Kristen. Very much appreciated. We also have a discount code for denim from Weft and Waft in the ACT in Australia. I have myself purchased some of that red stretch denim that they have. It's beautiful. First of all, we're going to start with the back of the jeans. So this is our 2 back pieces. Right side's down on the ironing board. And what we're going to join to these first is the yoke pieces. So this is the yoke for the low-rise ginger jeans. And when you're thinking about a yoke, the highest part or the deepest part of the yoke goes to the inside. So it goes to the center back, and the low or the shallower side goes to the outside. That's the way yokes work on jeans. Now I have the yokes pinned in place. I'm going to stitch them and then I'll show you what we do next. So now I've got both yokes attached, the left and the right side, and I've overlocked them. Just a hint when you're overlocking jeans where this is going to be top stitched. So we're going to press it up, because the top stitching actually happens along the top part. So the top stitching is actually on the yoke, not on the pants back as such, or the leg. When you're overlocking that off, try not to take off too much of the fabric, because when you do your top stitching, you want something for your top stitching to grab onto. So if you've got a decent size seam and you want to have a wider top stitching, it's going to be much easier. You can see now I'm going to top stitch those, but before I do that, because I'm going to the top stitching machine, I'm going to pop the pockets on because they're going to get top stitched too. So to save time, we can pop those pockets on at the same time. So they just literally get top stitched onto the backs of your pants. Okay, so now got the yoke joined on, it's top stitched, the pockets have been top stitched on both sides. Now it's time to join the center back seam. And remembering what we really want to do is get this absolutely spot on where those 2 seams join in the back. So this time, I'm going to use my lethal weapons called clover pins. So what I'm doing is trying to make sure I have these pins in exactly the right place. Okay, I'm really happy with where that is going to land. It's really, really important that that matches up because it's at the center back, really, of your bum. So clover pins are lethal. Now I predominantly used these pins, the clover pins, when I made my Nova coat, because I made it in 2 different colours. So it had a 4-way intersection of 2 different colours, and so it needed to be matched perfectly, which these pins were very helpful in making sure that happened. But you can just really take your time making sure it's right, or you can hand tack it down so that it's in the right position. We're just going to sew this back seam and make sure it's correct. Now I usually sew on, this is just getting sewn on my normal sewing machine. I usually sew at a 2.2 length, but in this part of the crutch from here to here, I'm going to drop it down to 2, and then I'm going to put it back up to 2.2, because if I needed to pull out this, because it for some reason didn't match, I don't want to have to pull it out as a 2 length. So I've finished joining that centre back seam. So that is a pretty good join, spot on, and that's what we wanted. And that's why I used the clover pins for it. Now the next thing I need to do, now that I know that this is correct, I need to overlock this off. And once again, I won't be taking a huge chunk of fabric out of it. It is 1.5 or 5/8 of an inch, so it's a decent seam allowance, but you actually want that seam allowance so that you've got to press it to one side. So I'm just going to overlock that off and then press it. Okay, that's overlocked off. Threads everywhere. Just pop the lethal pins away. And now we need to press it to the left. And remembering what the instructions said, when you're pressing something, it's as if it was on your body. So if this was on the back of me, that's my left. We want to press this over to the left-hand side. Going to start off with the centre back up the top. And wait for my iron to wake up. And once I get to the crutch curve, I'm going to use a ham, because anything that's curved is much easier to press when you've got some sort of a curve in there. If you don't have a ham, you can always use some rolled up fabric, or a rolled up towel is good as well. I'll just check the inside to make sure it is all perfectly over to the correct side, and it is. So now I'm going to do 2 rows of top stitching on this. I'm going to put just a couple of pins in it to make sure it stays over there and doesn't become a bit wayward and try and go back over to the right hand side. And because this is stretch denim, when it comes to the crutch or any curved parts, it can tend to try and have a mind of its own and go all over the place. So keeping it pinned in place while I do at least the first row of top stitching will be a really good idea. So I'll top stitch that and then we'll come back. So now we've got the back completed. We've got pockets on, yoke on, top stitching done, centre back seam done. Now the next thing that we do, according to the instructions, is we join the front to the back. So what you need to know about joining the front to the back, so here's our front, looking beautiful, and here's our backs. The first, I can already see these are way too wide for me. So the first thing they want you to do is to sew this crutch seam. So you will need to line up that crutch seam. Not as important as the back yoke seam, because it's right under your crutch, and honestly, is someone going to see that? I'll still use the clover pins, but because it's a 4-way intersecting seam, much like under the arm, but when you've got using very heavy fabrics, it can move around a little bit. So the thing to remember when you're sewing your inner legs on your jeans is to find your markings, because in most patterns the front leg, and as you can see it is in this too, this is the front, this is the back. The front leg has got more ease up in the top part where your thigh is. So there's my matching notches, and you can see that we're going to need to ease this section in. It's not huge amounts, it's just a small amount, and it's very easy to do, but most jeans pattern has that. It'll be to do with the fact that they think your thigh is slightly bigger at the front than it is at the back, not looking at it as a whole round, but if you dissected it through the side, that the muscle on your thigh is more on the front than it is on the back, generally speaking. Not that I'm a biology expert, but that's the theory behind jeans having that extra bit of ease in the front thigh. So it can avoid those pull lines that you might get on pants when they're a little bit tight on the front compared to the back. So the built-in ease is a much better idea. So we're just going to ease that in. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to sew this with a permanent stitch, but I'm not going to overlock it off, and I'm not going to top stitch it, because this gets top stitched inside the leg, which means that to do that top stitching, you need to have not joined your side seams, but we need to actually fit the jeans before that. So I'm going to sew this inside leg, and then in a really large stitch, or I guess you could hand tack, but a large stitch on the machine, which is easy to take out, I'm going to sew up the side seams just to make sure the jeans are right. And then once I know, and I already think that I will have to take in bigger seams, but that's okay, because I can put those on then and mark where I'm going to take them in. Then I'm going to pull out those side seams and finish off the inside leg. So to finish off the inside leg, going to be, if it's correct, you're going to be overlocking it off. Remember not to take away too much fabric. And then we're going to be, I think you press towards the front for jeans. Yes, press it to the front and top stitch on the front. So you're top stitching actually very, very close to the seam line, but it is technically on the front part of the inside of the leg, not on the back part. Yes, so you can see on ready to wears, this is the front. So the seams are pressed towards the front and they're top stitched on the front. When I make jeans, even though I wing some of the things, I do go back and look at the instructions and say, which way am I supposed to be pressing this one? Is that in that direction? Yes, I thought my jeans was supposed to have the top stitching in the legs on the front legs, not the back legs. So I do refer back to them. Probably if I had made jeans every week, I wouldn't need to refer to it. But I don't all that often make I've actually got lots of pairs of jeans and pants, but I don't make them all that often. I actually made the Zoe blouse last night. I wouldn't say it's the best fit for me. Probably really need to do something about my scrawny neck instead. Or wear something with a collar. Maybe it's the whole open V-neck and not enough flesh there anymore. Used to be fine. Once again, you can see this is the back, this is the front, so there's much more fabric in the front of the thigh. So just going to ease that in. So I think we're going to leave it there for today, as yesterday's was so long. And when we come back next time, I will have stitched the inside leg. I won't have overlocked it off yet, or done any top stitching on it or anything like that. We'll leave that, and I will sew the outside legs temporarily, let's call it that, in a very large stitch, so in like a gathering stitch, so that we can pull them out easily. Because then I need to talk to you about when you fit jeans. Obviously these are not going to pull right up to my waist because they don't have the waistband on yet, but when you put the waistband on things, it actually becomes a slightly different size. So you need to make sure, because these are stretch jeans, how tight you want these jeans. I can already tell that's, how much bigger is it than these? Really? This much bigger? Anyway, maybe I just won't have them as tight as these are. These are a size 29, which I don't know what that is in normal language. I think that's just a waist measurement. Okay, so that's where we're going to leave it. We're up to the inner leg seam. That's what we're going to call it. That's what they're calling it. Sewing the side, inseams. Oh, inseams. But it's the inner leg seams. And remembering that the ease, if you're up to the same stage as me, if you're up to this stage, just sew that inner leg seam and you can sew your outside leg seam, but make it so that you can easily pull that out. The inner leg seam, unlikely to have to pull that out. Remember about the ease. The ease is on the outside as well as the inside leg, as well as the outside leg, where it's just a little bit longer. So the piece is a little bit longer between, and I think it's between the crutch and the knee. Between the crutch and the knee, you'll have a little bit more fabric than the back, and so that means that you will have to ease that in. It's quite easy to do, but even in your temporary sew up, you might want to ensure that that ease is taken up. Join me all next time for part 4. Don't forget about Sew Autumn Denim, where you can sew anything made of denim. It doesn't have to be a pair of jeans. And please like and subscribe. And also, I think I'll make a pair of ash jeans with the red denim, because when I looked up the booklet today, I really like the way they do their fly. Now this is one with a separate fly facing. So instead of the piece coming all in one, it's actually got a seam here. And I prefer that, except when I made the purple cords, because the corduroy is very, very heavy cord, and so it's a bit bulky to do that. But in a stretch denim, I quite like that look. I wonder if these ready-to-wear ones, what they've got. Oh yes, and maybe that's what I'm used to. So in the ready-to-wear, you can see that's a seam. So it's actually got that added piece on. And I find the fly easier to sew, even though it actually means you've got more pieces, more pattern pieces. I find the fly easier to sew when I'm joining that part together. I don't know why. Whereas I know that some people, if they've got a pattern that's got the separate piece, they put it on to their pattern piece and cut it with it on it, so that they don't have to join it. But whichever way people want to sew things is fine. So I will be back with part 4, which is going to be, I will have joined my inner leg seams, and I will have done a temporary outer leg seam, and then we can try the jeans on and see what we think. Everyone have a great week. Keep sewing. I hope someone's sewing the ginger jeans with me. That'd be really good. Let me know. Talk to you all soon. Bye.